Hey everybody, welcome to Readers That Write. We have an amazing episode for you today talking about the differences between indie and traditional publishing, some of my recommendations in both, as well as an author, why do we pick what we pick? Sometimes it's optional, sometimes it's not. Is there a world in between? So much to cover. So stay tuned after the jump and we'll get right into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to Readers That Write. We have such a cool episode today, and it's honestly a little bit personally motivated. As an independently published author myself, I wanted to talk about what it is, why it's different, and why is there so much chaos about it going on online right now. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen the discussions going on BookTube and BookTok and Instagram about some traditionally published authors going after independently published authors. There's constant ragging from some independently published authors on the traditional publishing system and how it works. So let's get into it. First off, what is independently publishing and what does it look like? So independently publishing is where the author takes full control and pushes the entire process. They find an editor, work with the editor independently. They contract a cover artist. They go about the entire publishing process. A lot of times they handle the fulfillment as well. They raise the capital. They work with the bookstores directly to try and get in. And it can be a very tedious process. Speaking firsthand, it is exhausting. Almost all of my free time is spent marketing or doing social media posts or sharing my book or locating bookstores to reach out to and trying to get my book in the door or scheduling events or trying to find ways to sell my book through different avenues. Like recently we just started a TikTok shop and we went through that whole process. We have managing my business, having to handle all of that. It's a very arduous process. The big pro with it is no one else is getting a cut when I sell a book, which is nice. But for me personally, I'm on the fence about it. I have always been one of those people who likes having a team around me. So hopefully down the road, honestly, my goal is to go hybrid. So to sit somewhere between the two, where some of my books are independently published, some are traditionally published. I would like to lean more to the traditionally published side, mostly because of that team aspect. But that's kind of much longer conversation. Traditionally publishing books are where a press or company directly handles everything. They will buy the rights to that book from the author, and then they will take lead on publishing, marketing, all of that, where the vast majority of the risk is on the press, not on the author. That can be very nice. There's a lot of pros that can happen with that relationship. You have the opportunity to sell vastly more books. You have much better relationships with companies like Barnes & Noble and several of the other bookstores around the world. Audiobooks tend to happen far more frequently for traditionally published authors than it does for independently published authors, mostly due to the capital that required to create an audiobook. So there are a lot of pros to being traditionally published. The big issue that a lot of authors are running into is that certain genres aren't as popular as traditionally published. They tend to stick to literary fiction, or they try and find the big name fantasies like Brandon Sanderson or Tolkien, Patrick Rothfuss, Neil Gaiman. That's what they're looking for. So if you like to write, say, a slightly satirical science fiction or military science fiction book like Greg Allenson, it doesn't fit into their paradigm. So you end up in a very weird place. Sometimes you can get lucky. You can find an agent who does like that kind of stuff and is willing to try and sell it. But if you end up traditionally published, you end up on what's called the mid list, where your book sells, but you're not a high priority to your publishers. So they don't spend a lot of capital on marketing, and your book's likely just going to go sit on a shelf at a bookstore and may or may not make a lot of money, which in the past hasn't been bad until about 2011 when independent publishing became a reality. Then all of a sudden, it's actually just as easy for the author on those mid lists to step up and say, I'm going to handle all of this, I'm going to publish it, and I'm going to market it. And when you can find your community and find your crowd, all of a sudden, you're now making all of that same mid-list money, but it's all going to you. You're not splitting it between you and your agent and your publisher. So it becomes more effective and more profitable. And we've seen a lot of this push lately from these mid-list genres. Another one is what they call campy fiction. They're the much smaller scale stories, not the world's going to end stories, but the town's having a water crisis, so a group of heroes has to go and figure out what's happening to the water while having to persuade a mythical dragon to stop sitting in the middle of the lake, causing it to flood. That kind of a story. Those stories can be super fun. They're some of my favorites to read during quiet time or after a stressful day because they're very relaxing. They're some of my favorites. Another one that has been a mid-list for a very, very long time that has shifted. It's starting to be picked up a lot more by traditional publishing because of the shift that happened is what you call romantasy. So a romance story in a fantastical world. It isn't something that traditional publishing has regularly liked. Typically, romance and fantasy were very separate things and didn't cross when it came to traditional publishing until, honestly, about last year or two is when I've seen a lot of push for romantasy for the first time. Independent publishing went wild with this. It's one of the first genres that blew up when it came to independent publishing. And I think finally traditional publishing is starting to take note. They have signed several romantasy authors and have started marketing it heavily. And we've seen them have some wild success traditionally published as well, including a few of them actually making the Times list. So it's been very interesting to watch this relationship. For me, I actually started out technically traditionally published. I signed with a small press before 2020 happened. So my book went through that entire process and was set to release April 2020. As some of you guys may know, that didn't happen because of everything else that happened in the world. So I had to reset when that press folded. They were super, super nice, which is why I don't bring their name into this at all. They released my rights. They handed everything over to me, including all the editing and the artwork. And basically walked me through how to independently publish my book, which was wonderful of them. I do deeply appreciate that. I'm still friends with the owner, and she's moved on to much better things as well. So that is why I ended up deciding to traditionally publish, or not to independently publish, I should say. In hindsight, should I have gone a different route? Maybe. I do suspect that if I had been in a place where I could actively query things like that at the time, I probably could have landed another small to medium-sized press to publish my book. But in 2020, the world was in chaos, and I needed something to accomplish it. On top of that, I had health problems to the point where I wasn't sure I would be around for much longer. And that's a whole other story we can talk about at a different time. But because of that, I wanted to at least get a book out. I wanted to do something to make myself a little bit more permanent. And because of that, I decided indie publishing was the right route to go. I have loved several aspects of it. I've loved the control I have over my book. I love the ability I have to work hand in hand with every single one of the people I contract to help me out, as well as the full control over social media, things like that. But it has been exhausting. And it has been years of me working through trial and error to try and figure out how to make this work. There's been, honestly, wasted money, wasted time doing things that don't work. But the things that do work have landed heavily, and I've seen a lot of success with it. So it puts me in an interesting position. I actually do, like I said, I would love to traditionally publish something. And if that means some of my first books are independently published and the rest are traditionally published afterwards, great. If I end up going back and a publisher wants to reprint all of my stuff, make some tweaks, make some changes, and make them their version of my original works, cool. I'm okay with that too. It would all depend on the relationship, and that's the big thing for me. Excuse me. It's very cold and dry here. It's messing with my throat. I'm not actually sick. So that is the conversation that a lot of people are talking about now, is the relationship for traditional publishing versus indie publishing. We've seen it with Brandon Sanderson's Secret Projects. And that's something we've seen a lot of people talk about lately, is the relationship between authors and traditional publishing. It's something that is very hit or miss. Some authors have great relationships with their agents and with traditional publishing as a whole. There have been incidents of traditional publishing houses changing stories that authors have written due to issues with different things in the story. And that has caused pretty big uproar amongst traditionally published authors. And a lot of them have actually pivoted to independent publishing. Others have seen the relationship with traditional publishing and Amazon being a problem, as well as certain situations with bookstores. Some of this has actually pushed people like Brandon Sanderson to run a Kickstarter event and traditionally publish everything. Excuse me, not traditionally publish everything, independently publish. Someone who traditionally publishes everything went and independently published a collection of stories. He did later actually negotiate a very good deal with Tor, his primary publisher, to release them in trade paperback as well as hardcover. So it did end up working quite well. But his Kickstarter event has caused a lot of chaos for traditional publishing. And his points are valid as well. It's something that independent authors actually do enjoy. We can sell our books however we want. If I want to put a code in my paperback book that gives you the ebook for free, I can do that. If I want to send that book with a bunch of stickers and some artwork, I can do that too. If I have an audiobook, I can sell a bundle for like $50 with the ebook, audiobook, and paperback or hardcover. Probably wouldn't sell it for 50, but point given, I can do what I want. And I can do those cool bundles and twists that make my book very independent. I haven't done many of those yet because there's a lot of infrastructure involved in that, but that is my goal for next year. This year has been a little crazy with the book release that's happening here on Friday, November 10th. So if you're seeing this before then, great. Hope you enjoy the book. If not, check it out. I'm sure we'll have a lot of social media posts and things like that about it. But it's something that traditional publishing hasn't been a fan of. Typically, they want to sell every single thing piecemeal, which makes some sense to me. But given the way people read books now, it doesn't make that much sense. Typically, the response I often get is people will, and I actually do this myself too, read the ebook or listen to the audiobook first. If they like it, they will pick up a physical copy. So why not sell a bundle? If you can get the paperback book along with the audiobook or ebook, it's a win-win. You get the book for your shelf and the version you will probably consume, and I get my book out there, and it makes it far more enjoyable. So it's something that has been a big matter of discussion in the both traditional and independently published world due to a lot of things Brandon Sanderson brought up, and honestly things that we've been talking about for a long time in the publishing industry. It's been cool to see Tor actually listen to it. They haven't made those big changes yet, but they are starting to do more bundling of books when they sell through their own personal stores. It'll be interesting to see how bookstores respond to this as well, but it is something that I'm very excited to see what happens with. If it's a success and it keeps going, it's something that will only benefit everyone involved. Yes, it's a little bit more logistics, but if it does work properly, it's something that will honestly make all of us more money and will make the readers more happy. So it's a win-win across the board. Now, the other big thing that has been a big push for independently published authors is Kickstarter. It allows us to, well, I shouldn't say us, I haven't done it yet. It's also on my list for either next year or the year after, probably the year after, depending on which of the two books I have ready to go slated for next year. But Kickstarter allows us to, A, raise the funds so that we can do a better job publishing our book. That means the upfront capital comes through the reader to us. That means we can pay the editor a better editor to do a better job. To be fair, the editor I had for my most recent book was spectacular, and I will likely be using her again. And being able to pay her for her full suite of editing skills will be fantastic. And that's something that a lot of indie authors struggle with, and is the big dig against indie authors, is that the books indie authors write aren't as quote unquote clean as traditionally published. And that's because indie authors don't have access to the suite of 8 to 10 different editors that will all have eyes on the book that a main list traditionally published author will. And that's fine. Honestly, we have seen a lot of push lately from readers who enjoy not as flowery of prose. Brandon Sanderson being the best example for that. He is a spectacular writer. His prose are not to the Neil Gaiman level or the Patrick Rothfuss level, and that is fine. People enjoy that. People enjoy being able to read something that isn't as overwhelming sometimes to read. Don't get me wrong, I love all three of those authors. I will read anything from any of those authors. And I feel like there is a place and time for those prose, and there's a place and time for the more simplistic prose as well. I tend to write somewhere in the middle. I do enjoy prose and having them in there, but I also feel like I want to cater to a much larger audience that enjoys this, focusing on the story more than the prose. Yes, I do understand that prose often helps stories as well. But all of that combined leads to part of the big conversation of, getting back on track, Kickstarter. Having a team of editors be able to tackle your book is something that most indie authors can't afford. They don't tend to make enough money to be able to drop 7 to 10 grand on the editorial process. With Kickstarter, if we raise enough money, that is an entirely different conversation. Same goes for the quality of covers and the cover art. A lot of indie published authors have fairly simple cover art. For example, most of mine are stock photos, and I'm okay with that. But I would love to be able to pay several hundred or even several $1,000s to a very famous artist to do a cover like you see on Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings, or one of those spectacular covers that we see in the industry. Distribution and printing is also another question. A lot of independently published authors run through what's called KDP, or Kindle Direct Publishing. And they will print our books for us. Ingram Sparks is another one that will do that as well. They typically will take a cut of what is printed for the publishing fees. A lot of the higher quality publishers that do the hardbacks with the dust covers and do all of the cool foil art and will print artwork inside your story that can be colored, that costs so much money. And typically you've got to order 10 to 20,000 books, then you've got to distribute them yourself. And it is a very long, tedious process. So Kickstarter has been the solution for that. A lot of authors, including one of my favorites, A.P. Beswick, has seen wild success. A good friend of mine, Bree Moore, also just had a lot of success with that. And it's something that I'm going to be looking into here in the near future, probably 2 years from now, depending on the situation that happens with a book I am currently querying. If it goes traditional publishing, great. If it doesn't, I will probably go the Kickstarter route. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more coming. So I know I just info dumped a lot on you guys, and I apologize. Please check out the books I just referenced as well. I forgot to hold up one of Bree Moore's. I've got probably 4 or 5 of them here. That's the first book in one of her original series that I thoroughly love. I actually just finished Quill and Vial as well. It's behind me in white. You can see it over my shoulder. Absolutely recommend that book as well. It was spectacular. And it's been fun to see a friend that I went to junior high and high school with on the same path as I have been on as a writer. And it's been fun to share information back and forth. She's fed me a lot of information for social media and pointed me in the right direction to help there as well. So to circle back, please support indie authors. They work very, very hard on their stories, and they do everything they possibly can to share stories that aren't stories that are traditionally told. For example, my fantasy series is one that would get some traditional publishing outlets, but it would probably sit on a mid-list at most. It's about a bunch of young adults who have to go on a journey to try and save their world from invasion by rediscovering magic. It's been spectacular. I've gotten a lot of great reviews from people who have read it, but being independently published, it didn't get the publicity that I would have liked. And that's okay. I said the trilogy is wrapping up on Friday, so check it out if you have some free time. And support other indie authors like me on this wonderful journey of writing. You will find so many spectacular stories that you wouldn't see walking to Barnes & Noble and looking for the big publishers. And that being said, support the big publishers too. They are fantastic. And keeping them going is exactly what the industry needs as well. We need to have those big publishers to keep books in front of people and keep talking about books and keep the relationships with books and the public going. So absolutely support them too. Go and check out those amazing stories and the books that have had a lot of money put into them, because they will be fantastic. And hopefully someday I'll be on that side of the table too. But it's in the end, read books, find books in different places, check out your local library, and ask for local authors. There will be a combination of the two. And they will have some amazing recommendations from authors that you will get to meet. You'll get to see them and talk to them, ask questions about their books, and you'll have an opportunity to do something that you don't get to very often with some of the bigger names. For me, Brandon Sanderson, Dan Wells, some of those guys are my local authors. So I have had the pleasure of meeting them before, and we'll have the pleasure of meeting them again. I'm actually going to be seeing them here in a few weeks at Dragonsteel. So there will be authors like that in your local community, but there will also be authors like me, ones who run their entire show out of their home office, and they would love your support as well. If you have any questions, comments, anything you want me to cover, please mention in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. If you have good book recommendations, I am always looking for those. So please mention those in the link below or in the comments below. And follow me on social media for more updates.